Want to open a bank account in Ukraine? Well, most people don't. Most locals go to great lengths to avoid banking in Ukraine. In fact, Ukrainians with the wealth and means park their cash outside of the country. In short, banking in Ukraine can be one hell of a roller coaster ride. So why would we even consider filming a video about banking in the country? Well, for two reasons. First, because we still get questions about banking in the Ukraine from our premium members. So we thought we'd share our thoughts here with some of our viewers. Second, despite all the corruption, lawlessness, Russian aggression, and economic dependency on international handouts, things are changing. Slowly, very slowly. But before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get alerted every time we post new non-resident banking opportunities. Now, to help you get started with opening a bank account in Ukraine, we have a free non-resident banking starter guide. It's designed to help non-resident and foreigners open bank accounts. So, don't forget to download your copy using the link in the description below. Ukrainian dominoes, government, banks, and currency. In 2014, the Ukrainian government collapsed. That triggered a banking crisis. The local currency, the hryvnia, spun out of control. And from 2014 to 2015, nearly 62 Ukrainian banks were declared insolvent and stripped of their banking licenses. Within a year, 12 more banks failed, and 14 banks were so rickety that the country's central bank put them under temporary administration. By the end of 2016, the government nationalized the largest bank in the country to save the banking system. And even that was wrapped up in scandal. This is why we're so adamant that non-residents take the financial and economic factors into consideration before they start banking in a foreign country. After all, bad things can happen. But economic collapse and banking failures aside, Ukraine has other problems. High levels of distrust and massive lack of confidence permeate the Ukrainian banking system. Why? We call it the Ukrainian shuffle. Insolvent zombie banks would go under, have their licenses revoked, and then magically reappear. The pattern went a little something like this. Get a bank, run it into the ground, take all the money, authority declares bank insolvent, get a court to overturn the decision, and have your bank declared solvent again. It was a surreal practice, and it was common. So common, in fact, that in 2019, the IMF refused to give the Ukraine any money until they changed their banking law. And since Ukraine is effectively propped up by the IMF, they didn't have much of a choice. Still, bad banks, corruption, an easy-to-bully court system, and currency controls, Ukrainian banking doesn't exactly scream stability. Or as a local Ukrainian friend put, banks are not stable here. There's no guarantee a bank will even be alive in a year. So why is Ukrainian banking so bad? When the Soviet Union broke up in 1991, Ukraine gained independence and opportunity was everywhere. Immediately, officials set up a central bank, NBU, slapped together a brand spanking new banking law, and broke up the country's one and only state bank into 5 little banks. These little banks handled different parts of the economy: industry, agriculture, social services, savings, and foreign trade. It was a classic post-Soviet maneuver. Every country did it. It's almost like someone distributed a post-Soviet banker's handbook. But there were a few problems. The banking law didn't have any of the normal rules you'd expect, and it was very short on details. Requirements were slim, and no reporting was required. And everyone and their uncle wanted a bank. So naturally, Ukraine became a bank licensing machine. The number of Ukrainian banks surged from 5 to a whopping 238 banks between 1991 and 1995. What could go wrong? Ukraine was the Wild West of banking. So, with all this questionable behavior and loose banking regulations, why would anyone want a bank in the Ukraine? Well, depending on who you are, there are actually some really great reasons. Let's take a look. Why open a bank account in Ukraine? Unlike many of the European nations we cover on GlobalBanks, Ukraine is not in the European Union. So it's not going to act as an entry point for foreigners and non-residents looking to open EU bank accounts. If that's what you're after, you should check out Poland, Bulgaria, Hungary, or Lithuania. Of course, there are other options to consider, but if you're looking to open a bank account in Ukraine, these countries might be a safe starting point. Now, back to opening a bank account in Ukraine. Yes, there are banks here that offer benefits to account holders. In fact, there are banks in Ukraine that can help you expand your international banking footprint well beyond the country's borders and into major European hubs like Austria or France. However, no matter which bank you choose, you should keep your deposit to an amount you don't mind losing. Who should open a bank account in Ukraine? When it comes to Ukrainian banking, there are two groups that open accounts here. Group 1, the usual suspects. Well, if you live and work in the country, you might have to open a bank account in Ukraine. After all, it's common for Ukrainian companies to only pay employee salaries to local accounts, so getting paid via Revolut or your international bank isn't going to work. Plus, sometimes just having a bank account in Ukraine makes life easier, especially when you have to pay for things like paying for utilities, cars, apartments, tuition, etc. Here's a quick look at some of the groups who typically open bank accounts in Ukraine. Non-residents who want to accumulate and hold funds in foreign currency, anyone who wants exposure to hryvnia, Ukraine's local currency, foreigners and expats living, working, and residing in Ukraine, anyone who needs to receive their salary in a Ukrainian bank account. Some Ukrainian companies can only pay local banks, anyone with a burning desire to save on local ATM fees in Ukraine, individuals and companies investing in Ukraine, students in Ukraine, entrepreneurs, freelancers, business owners working or operating a business in Ukraine, businesses that need to pay employees in Ukraine, and investing in government bonds in local currency. Group number 2, the not-so-usual suspects. The second group is hunting for opportunity and raw utility. Basically, this crowd sits back and says, if I open a bank account in Ukraine, how can I use it to improve my life, achieve some obscure goal, or make money? Well, they might be potential investment in diversification opportunities, hryvnia-denominated Ukrainian government bonds, purchase Ukraine real estate investments, fixed deposits or CDs for Americans at Ukrainian banks. Warning, when buying fixed deposits or CDs in Ukraine, they'll be denominated in hryvnia, US dollars, and euros. But be careful, even though you can earn 16% plus on a fixed term deposit in hryvnia, Ukraine's inflation rate is just as high. This will destroy any profit and you might end up losing money depending on inflation at the time. We'll share more specific benefits for the second group inside GlobalBanks Insider, unlocking the increasingly valuable benefits that the banks in Ukraine can offer. Challenges if you open a bank account in Ukraine. Well, besides everything we've already mentioned, foreigners and non-residents trying to open a bank account in Ukraine often find the process frustrating, time-consuming, and complicated. Here are a few specific challenges to watch out for. Confusing rules and varying requirements. When opening a bank account in Ukraine as a foreigner, the rules vary from bank to bank and branch to branch. Some banks will reject foreigners because they don't have the right visa, tax ID, or local work contract. Other banks refuse foreigners who are citizens and residents of certain countries. Each bank also has different administrative procedures. Some want all your documents to be notarized and translated into Ukrainian by a certified translator. Others are much more lenient. The bank, branch, and banker you choose can drastically simplify the opening process. So choosing the right combination is key. It's the difference between a multi-day slog, repeated rejections, and time wasted acquiring unnecessary paperwork like tax IDs, visas, etc., and opening your account on the spot. Some bankers can't open for foreigners. Some bankers will say, we can't open bank accounts for foreigners, but this isn't always true. Typically, this phrase just means, I don't want to help you, so please go somewhere else. It's up to you to decode each banker's language and figure out what's real and what's not. Read the situation wrong or say the wrong thing, and you waste a lot of time banker hunting and branch hopping in the account opening phase. As a GlobalBanks Insider, you get the specific banks, strategies, banker contacts you need to open accounts in Ukraine without headaches. Transfer restrictions. If you're opening a bank account in Ukraine as a non-resident, watch out for extra transfer restrictions. For example, you can't receive payments from any Ukrainian bank account if you don't have a permanent residency. You can only receive SWIFT transfers. With temporary residency, you cannot legally have money transferred into your account unless the person or company transferring it deducts 19% in taxes and follows specific procedures to show the origin of the money. Conclusion: we do not recommend that most people or businesses open a bank account in Ukraine. There are simply better and safer banking options available elsewhere. A Ukrainian bank account, however, can still be an interesting banking option for certain types of people. For example, it might be a nice backup banking option for people who are struggling to open accounts elsewhere, who have an unlucky passport or residency, or who just desperately want a non-resident bank account somewhere in Europe. Still want to open a bank account in Ukraine? Well, to start opening accounts today, you can obviously use the information that I've shared in this video. Or you can access one of our account opening services and start taking action today. Each of our premium services are designed to help non-resident individuals, foreigners, and their businesses open international bank accounts. Whether you need personal, private, business, offshore, or even US banking, we have an account opening solution that will work for you. You can get started with GlobalBanks IQ, our international banking intelligence service. It gives you step-by-step instructions and all the tools you need to find and open accounts with top banks around the world. Plus, you'll unlock our international intelligence reports, account opening strategies, international bank database, and much more. We also have a dedicated US account opening service called GlobalBanks USA, which is 100% focused on helping non-residents, foreigners, and even foreign and offshore companies open bank accounts in the US. It involves direct one-on-one support from our team of experts and includes access to our US banking intelligence reports, US account opening strategies, and US bank database. And, of course, there's our flagship service, GlobalBanks Insider. With GlobalBanks Insider, you'll get access to everything we offer, including all the benefits in GlobalBanks IQ and GlobalBanks USA, plus our entire library of premium reports, the entire GlobalBanks database, and dedicated one-on-one support from our team of international banking experts to help you find and open the accounts you need. So, no matter where you're looking to bank in the world, you're only a few clicks away from finding and opening international accounts. To get started, just click the link in the description below to learn more about the available options. And before signing off, don't forget to hit subscribe so you get alerted every time we share new banking opportunities. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.